Welcome to the American Clean Elections Academy. This is the Dropbox monitoring module. Thank you in advance for your valuable service, extraordinary dedication, and the gift of your time to ensure election integrity. After the documentary 2000 Mules exposed the problem with illegal ballot collection, also known as ballot harvesting, and unsupervised ballot drop boxes, monitoring these drop boxes has become extremely important this year. So how do we stop this practice of ballot harvesting? We organize and we commit to watching the drop boxes like a hawk. We pay attention and document any irregular or suspicious activities. The Salvo app will help us do just that, and will also help us to organize and schedule monitors. Please note, this is not a sanctioned, recognized election activity per our local governments. Dropbox monitoring is being done by concerned citizens on an entirely volunteer basis. So this module will cover the following topics: Florida statutes, early voting and Dropbox locations, how many ballots someone can legally deliver, chain of custody and how it's violated, no solicitation zones, telltale signs of irregular activity, and what to do if you see something unusual. Let's first understand the law. What do the Florida statutes say? They say the supervisor shall allow an elector who had received a vote-by-mail ballot to physically return a voted vote-by-mail ballot to the supervisor by placing the return mail envelope containing his or her marked ballot in a secure Dropbox. So far, so good. By monitoring the Dropbox, we are ensuring the Dropbox is secure. The statute also says secure Dropboxes shall be placed at the main office of the supervisor, at each permanent branch office of the supervisor, and at each early voting site. So this tells us where we need to be watching. The law further states, except for secure drop boxes at an office of the supervisor, a secure Dropbox may only be used during the county's early voting hours of operation and must be monitored in person by an employee of the supervisor's office. So we're not only monitoring the Dropbox, we're also monitoring the employees of the supervisors of election and ensuring they're doing their job. The law also states, secure drop boxes may also be placed at any other site that would otherwise qualify as an early voting site. So you may hear someone talk about secure ballot intake locations. That's just a fancy, newfangled way of saying drop boxes after Senate Bill 90 was passed in 2021. Yeah, like that's so much easier to say. However, these should be available at every early voting location. The question now is whether they will be inside or outside each location. If they're inside, we understand it will be difficult for our monitoring teams to do their job, but hopefully this should be offset by all the people watching inside the early voting stations. So where are these early voting locations? The law says a supervisor shall designate each Dropbox site at least 30 days before an election, and the supervisor shall provide the address of each Dropbox location to the Division of Elections at least 30 days before an election. To find the Dropboxes in your county, go to your Supervisor of Elections website, which by law should have them listed 30 days before the election. The statute also says after a Dropbox location has been designated, it may not be moved or changed except as approved by the division to correct a violation of this subsection. Here's an example from the Marion County Supervisor of Election website showing all the locations of early voting and Dropbox locations. Go to your county's SOE website and look for early voting information. Usually it's under that title, and you'll see the Dropbox or early voting locations. These will also be noted in your Salvo app. So you might be wondering how many ballots a person can legally deliver to a Dropbox. So here's what the statute says. Any person who provides or offers to provide, and any person who accepts a pecuniary or other benefit in exchange for distributing, ordering, requesting, collecting, delivering, or otherwise physically possessing more than 2 vote-by-mail ballots per election, in addition to his or her own ballot or a ballot belonging to an immediate family member, commits a misdemeanor of the first degree. So immediate family members include your spouse, parent, child, grandparent, grandchild, or sibling. The ellipsis, or the 3 dots in the law, cover nursing homes, which are their own special case. We read the statute to say that a person can deposit 3 ballots, their own plus 2 others belonging to family members, in a secured Dropbox. Next, let's talk about chain of custody, which in legal contexts is the chronological documentation or paper trail that records the sequence of custody, control, transfer, analysis, and disposition of materials, including physical or electronic evidence. So our ballots are physical evidence, and you can see how extremely important this chain of custody is in voting, especially now that we have such long voting periods. And further, Florida law states that the employees of the supervisor must comply with procedures for the chain of custody of ballots as required by state statute. So Florida law states, on each day of early voting, all drop boxes must be emptied at the end of early voting hours, and all ballots retrieved from the drop boxes must be returned to the supervisor's office. This part of the Florida law is one important link in the chain of custody that we, as citizens, can monitor. We need to make sure the employee who is tasked with overseeing the drop boxes from the Supervisor of Elections office is there at this critical point at the end of the day. We need to be watching this procedure as the drop boxes are being emptied. If any drop box is left accessible for ballot receipt other than as authorized by this section, the supervisor is subject to a civil penalty of $25,000. This part of the law makes it clear that leaving a drop box unattended and unmonitored is a serious offense. So let's talk about no solicitation zones. As a Dropbox monitor, you'll need to understand the no solicitation zone, which is described like this in the statute. No person, political committee, or group or organization may solicit voters inside the polling place, an early voting site, or within 150 feet of the entrance to any polling place, early voting site, or ballot intake station. Remember, a ballot intake station is a drop box. Senate Bill 90 placed no solicitation zones around drop boxes. It also says, before the opening of a drop box location, a polling place, or an early voting site, the clerk or supervisor shall designate the no solicitation zone and mark the boundaries. Do not transgress this zone to talk with a voter, ask a question, make a comment, or clarify something. The no solicitation zone is a hard stop for you as a Dropbox monitor. It's important for us to understand what someone who is trying to undermine election integrity might look like. There are some telltale signs. So let's look at those. Be on the lookout for someone who might be scanning or clearly searching the area while approaching the drop box. Someone carrying a large bag or backpack and pulling out multiple ballots. Of course, that would be one. Someone who might be wearing rubber, latex, or other type of gloves. And this is especially important and easy to see here in Florida since it's so hot. Another thing to look for is someone who might be wearing a mask, covering or shielding their face. Granted, this is difficult in this particular time of COVID. Another telltale sign that's very important is someone taking pictures of the ballots before depositing them into the drop box. That's kind of a dead giveaway. And another one is someone running or hurrying away from the drop box. That's hard because they're going to be going away from the Dropbox. And as we've already noted, we have to also make sure our elected officials and their employees are doing their job. So we need to also make sure election employees are monitoring the Dropbox. Note any Dropboxes that are left unmonitored. Note how long from when to when they are unsupervised, and make sure to keep notes on this. As a Dropbox monitor, Defend Florida recommends that you take the ACE Academy module on being a poll watcher. These are important guidelines for being a Dropbox monitor, which is not, as we said earlier, an acknowledged or sanctioned activity by local or state governments. Conducting ourselves according to these rules is a key to making Defend Florida an effective activist group. Next, follow these guidelines while you're monitoring the Dropboxes. And a quick note that probably doesn't need to be said, but just in case, remember to wear neutral clothing when you're monitoring the Dropboxes. No political slogans or inflammatory words, please. We are taken seriously because we are professional. Third, remember Defend Florida's rules of engagement. When you're talking with or interacting with election officials, these rules of engagement are very important and will serve you well. Fourth, ensure that you have enough battery charge on your camera or have a fail-safe way to charge it during your watch. So let's talk for a second about photography. It's okay to take a photograph outside a polling place, not the same inside. So just don't violate the 150-foot rule as you take a photograph. And 5, take screenshots of the Wi-Fi connection throughout the day. This will help if there's ever a question about internet accessibility. This is a good time to remind yourself to be prepared with needed food and water during your shift. Lastly, if something isn't right, note the facts. Who, or a description of who, what, where, and when. Stay away from asserting a motive or impugning someone's character. Writing can be slow, so I think it's important to record yourself describing the incident. This will help later when you write your report. Having a recording app on your phone is very helpful and can be a lifesaver in the heat of the moment when there's a lot going on. Know how to access and use this app quickly. So what if you suspect foul play? Since you're not technically a poll watcher, you would initiate an incident report on your Salvo app. So look for the Salvo training module called the Incident Report module in the ACE Academy curriculum. Remember, don't interfere or interrupt a supervisor, clerk, employee, or poll worker while they're doing their job. If it's suspicious or clearly illegal, call this number on the screen, 877-868-3737. And then go to the Florida government's website and fill out an election fraud complaint. And how you do that is you go to the DOS, Department of State, dos.myflorida.com website. After you're there, type in elections integrity. It will take you to this page. You'll see these 4 boxes. Look for the bottom right corner that says elections fraud complaint, and click on that box, which will take you to a complaint form. It's straightforward to fill out. Now let's talk about dates. The primary elections occur on Tuesday, August 23rd. Early voting period throughout the state is August 13th through August 20th. So note these dates now. Really, stop the recording and put them in your calendar. However, each county supervisor can change or extend the early voting dates, so make sure to check with your local Supervisor of Elections website for updated days and times for early voting and poll watching. This is important. As I was putting this project together, I noticed that several counties have different and extended time periods for early voting. And for the general election, note these dates. Tuesday, November 8th is Election Day, and then the mandatory early voting period per the Division of Elections is October 29th through November 5th. So note these dates now. Really, stop this recording and put them in your calendar. Again, each county supervisor can change or extend the early voting dates, so make sure to check with your local SOE websites for updated days and times for early voting and poll watching. Lastly, we can't back down. I know they say that each election is the most important, but the stakes have never been higher in our country. Be absolutely firm in your resolve. It's time to charge, and it's time to take back our country. Thank you.